Adam was only 27 years old, but life already weighed heavily on him. As if decades had passed, working as a nurse in a busy hospital, the shifts were long and exhausting, and the salary simply couldn't keep up with the relentless pace of expenses. Each month felt like a race against time, and the bills kept coming, quickly piling up. Delayed college payments, bank loans, and maxed-out credit cards were part of his daily life. Though young, Adam carried a responsibility much heavier than someone his age should bear. Leaving home early was neither an easy nor a healthy choice, but conflicts with his father had left deep scars on his self-esteem. Since childhood, every step he took was scrutinized with harsh criticism about his grades, his decisions, and who he was supposed to become. This created within him a constant need to prove his worth, even though he hardly believed it himself. Yet, something curious began to emerge amid all that chaos. Somehow, amidst the stacks of bills and relentless pressure, Adam felt a subtle, almost imperceptible change. Something inside him whispered that perhaps things weren't as impossible as they seemed. He still didn't know how or when, but he was certain that sooner or later, something would drastically change the course of the story. When Adam decided to leave home, he imagined he would finally achieve the freedom and independence he so deeply desired. However, he hadn't anticipated the harsh realities of adulthood. Accustomed to intense expectations and constant criticism from his father, he stepped into the world eager to prove his worth, yet unprepared for the consequences of the financial mistakes that followed. Every decision he made seemed to sink him further. He bought a car he couldn't afford, rented an apartment beyond his budget, and spent more than he earned, attempting to fill an emotional void with material possessions. The young nurse felt pressured by a society that measured success by what one owned, and he desperately wanted to prove to his father that he could be successful. It wasn't long before Adam accumulated enormous debts. Banks began calling repeatedly about overdue loans. His university threatened to interrupt his nursing course, and friends began noticing changes in his behavior. Adam started distancing himself from those closest to him, feeling ashamed and guilty about his situation, and believing nobody would understand what he was going through. Inside, negative emotions battled constantly. Many times, he experienced deep insecurity, mentally repeating his father's criticisms, who had told him from an early age that he would never get anywhere. Those words echoed daily, undermining his self-esteem and creating cruel doubts that felt like absolute truths. He began to believe that perhaps he truly was incapable of achieving success or happiness. The feeling of failure was so intense that Adam spent sleepless nights imagining what it would be like to return home and admit to his father that he had completely failed. The shame of this possibility was terrifying, and he preferred isolation, carrying the emotional and financial burdens alone. He felt trapped in a negative spiral, unable to see a way out of his own problems. The breaking point came on a day when the hospital needed to reduce its staff, temporarily cutting Adam's hours. What already seemed like chaos became even worse, leaving him stunned. The fragile balance he'd maintained between debts and income suddenly vanished, and he found himself facing a critical situation. Either he'd drastically change something, or he'd sink completely. It was in this moment of profound crisis, in the unsettling silence of his small rented room, that Adam realized he stood at a genuine turning point. The situation was desperate, yet, curiously, in that moment of total vulnerability, a small, unexpected feeling of strength began to emerge. Perhaps, after all, this was his final chance, not to prove himself to his father, but to prove to himself that he could still rewrite his own story. Sitting alone in his apartment, surrounded by open letters filled with overdue payment notices, Adam felt trapped by his own choices. The walls of the small room seemed to close in on him, and he clearly realized he was reaching his emotional and financial limit. It was obvious something needed to change immediately, or he might never escape that suffocating situation. During that lonely and quiet night, Adam mentally revisited every moment of his journey so far. He relived the arguments with his father, the exaggerated demands, the constant criticism, and realized just how much all of it had shaped his way of viewing the world. He understood that he had unconsciously been repeating negative patterns, sabotaging his own potential. For a moment, Adam clearly saw that his life did not need to continue down that dark path. Perhaps the real problem wasn't the money itself, but rather his negative and overly critical mindset, built up over the years. An uncomfortable truth began to emerge. Unless he changed his way of thinking and acting, it wouldn't matter how much he worked or how much money he earned. History would repeat itself. Driven by unprecedented clarity, Adam decided he needed to take immediate action. He felt that if he didn't seize this exact moment of clarity, he might fall back into the cycle of procrastination and self-pity. On the table in front of him was a cell phone, nearly out of battery, and on impulse, he decided to search for something he'd never shown interest in before: real-life stories of financial recovery and personal transformation. As he read articles and watched videos, hearing stories of ordinary people who overcame struggles similar to, or even worse than, his own, something extraordinary began happening within Adam. For the first time in a long while, a small flame of hope began to glow in his heart. If those people had managed to transform their lives, maybe he could do the same. The clock was approaching 3 a.m. when Adam finally understood that he needed to make a crucial and definitive decision. Looking again at the scattered letters, he felt a mix of fear and excitement. It wouldn't be easy, but at that very instant, he realized he was ready to genuinely commit to his personal and financial transformation, no matter what the cost might be. And there, in the midst of that decisive night, with a faint glow of his phone lighting up his tired face, Adam made a decision that would completely change his life. He still didn't know exactly how or when, but he was absolutely certain he was about to embark on a journey that would forever define his future. What would happen next was uncertain, but it would undoubtedly be the turning point he desperately needed. Adam began his journey of financial and personal recovery in a simple but powerful way. He decided to immerse himself in books and videos about personal finance, positive thinking, and personal growth. For the first time, he clearly realized the impact that small changes could have on his life, especially in the way he viewed his daily problems and challenges. Gradually, Adam introduced new habits into his routine. He started eating healthier, exercising regularly, and prioritizing restorative sleep. These seemingly small actions strengthened his body and mind, providing the energy and clarity needed to better deal with his debts and financial struggles. He felt increasingly motivated and confident in himself. Over time, his financial situation improved significantly. He managed to renegotiate his debts, cut unnecessary expenses, and create a more efficient budget. Adam learned that discipline and perseverance were essential, but it was a shift in mindset that truly made the difference. Now, he deeply understood that happiness and success were direct results of the choices he made daily. Ultimately, Adam realized that his journey wasn't just about money, but also about self-awareness and personal growth. Today, he no longer sees adversity as a barrier, but as an opportunity for learning and growth. His message is clear and optimistic. Everything in life has its own timing. Even when things seem difficult, keep an open mind, fight for your dreams, and never forget that you are capable of transforming any situation.